Let me tell you something right now. Success doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't come wrapped in applause or instant likes. It comes in the dark hours, in quiet moments when no one is watching but you. And what fuels that kind of success? Self-discipline, not motivation, not hype, not luck, self-discipline. It is the silent power that doesn't just move mountains, it builds them. Self-discipline is doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it. That's not just a motivational phrase. That's a principle that separates the dreamers from the doers. It's the foundation of all lasting success. Because the reality is this: feelings are fleeting, but purpose is permanent. Every single one of us has moments when we don't feel like showing up. We don't feel like putting in the work. We don't feel like making the hard choice, the right choice. But self-discipline is the internal decision to ignore that feeling and obey your responsibility anyway. There's a dangerous myth out there that says you have to feel ready before you take action, that you need to feel inspired, pumped up, or in the mood. That's a lie. If you wait until you feel like it, you'll be waiting your whole life. The world doesn't pay you for your feelings, it pays you for your fruit. And fruit only comes from consistent, committed effort. You don't harvest a field because you feel like it. You harvest because the field demands it, and the harvest won't wait. Let's break it down even deeper. Every time you act based on emotion, you're living as a servant to circumstance. But when you act from discipline, you live as a master of outcome. Discipline is a higher law than emotion. Emotions fluctuate with the weather, the mood, the people around you, and 100 invisible influences. But discipline is a decision you make once, and then you live by it daily. You don't negotiate with yourself. You don't ask your feelings for permission. You act because your goals require it, and your future demands it. Let me give you a short but powerful example. There was a young man training to be a world-class athlete. Every morning, rain or shine, he was up at 4:30 a.m. Not because he was excited, not because he loved the cold, but because he made a commitment. One morning, while it was still dark outside, a friend visiting him asked, "Man, how do you keep doing this every day? Don't you ever just not feel like it?" The athlete looked him in the eye and said, "Every single day. But I'm not here to feel something. I'm here to be something." That's discipline. That young man didn't rise to the level of his emotions, he rose to the level of his habits. And his habits were built by choice, not by comfort. Because when you make discipline your lifestyle, you don't ask, "Do I feel like it?" You say, "This is who I am." That's what most people don't understand. Success isn't about talent alone. It's not about being the smartest or the most gifted. It's about being faithful, showing up, doing the work, laying the bricks, one after another, even when nobody's watching, especially when nobody's watching. Because the real reward doesn't come in public first, it's earned in private. That's where self-discipline lives, in the quiet decisions, in the daily sacrifices, in the refusal to quit, even when quitting looks easier. And here's the truth that people often avoid. It's easy to make excuses. It's easy to justify slacking off because you're tired, or because life got hard, or because you don't feel it today. But excuses don't build anything. Excuses don't cash checks. Excuses don't change lives. Discipline does. Discipline shows up when you're tired. It pushes through when you're uninspired. It speaks louder than every doubt, every delay, and every distraction. When you begin to practice discipline, you start to realize something powerful. You don't need to be motivated all the time. You just need to be committed. Motivation is like a spark. It gets things started. But discipline is the engine. It's what keeps the fire burning long after the excitement is gone. That's why winners don't rely on feelings, they rely on systems. They don't depend on emotion, they depend on standards. You've got to become the kind of person who gets things done regardless of the weather, the mood, the energy, or the applause. Because the people who change their lives, who elevate their families, who build generational success, They are the people who learned how to master themselves. They do the hard thing. They take the cold shower. They wake up early. They work when others are resting, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. So the next time you don't feel like showing up, remember, your feelings aren't in charge, your future is. And your future is shaped by the small decisions you make in the dark when no one is watching and nothing feels exciting. That's where greatness is born. In those moments of silence, where discipline drowns out emotion and obedience takes the wheel. When you do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it, you tap into the highest version of yourself. And that version, that's the one who wins. Every time. Silent power isn't loud because it doesn't need to be. The world is full of noise. Social media is saturated with highlight reels, people constantly broadcasting what they're doing, what they're building, and how hard they're working. But here's the truth. Real power doesn't have to announce itself. Real power is quiet. Real power is consistent. Real power doesn't perform for an audience. It performs for a purpose. Self-discipline is the engine behind silent power. It's the quiet repetition of the right actions over time. It's waking up early without posting about it. It's staying late to finish the work without needing applause. It's reading when others are scrolling, practicing when others are relaxing, sacrificing now to win later. It doesn't beg for attention because it understands that attention doesn't equal achievement. Discipline knows that the loudest one in the room often has the least to show, and the one who's quiet, focused, and faithful, that's the one who's building something real. When you truly commit to a vision, you don't need to convince the world that you're working. You're not grinding for validation, you're grinding for transformation. And transformation is slow, private, unglamorous. It's built in silence because silence has a special power. It removes distraction, it removes performance, and it puts your focus where it belongs, on the work, not on the recognition. The person who embraces silent discipline is dangerous because they're not working for praise, they're working for purpose. There's a kind of confidence that only comes from doing the work daily, whether anyone sees it or not, and that confidence becomes unshakable over time because it's not rooted in likes, followers, or applause. It's rooted in results. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to believe in your own consistency, not because you posted it, but because you lived it. Because you didn't skip. You didn't flinch. You didn't need motivation to do what needed to be done. Think about this. A lion doesn't roar while it's hunting. It moves in silence with focus, with intention. Why? Because the roar comes after the kill. That's what silent power looks like. You work in the shadows, and then one day the light hits what you've built, and people call it overnight success. But you and God both know better. You know about the years of quiet work, the discipline, the lonely nights, the sacrifices no one saw. You didn't need to prove it to the world. You just needed to prove it to your future self. Here's a simple but powerful example. There was a young woman in college studying software development. While most of her classmates were looking for internships, attending every event, and sharing their journeys online, she took a different approach. She chose silence. She spent her nights learning advanced coding concepts, building her own projects, and studying systems most people ignored. She didn't talk about it, she just did it. Quietly, consistently, for 2 years. By the time graduation came, many of her classmates had long lists of public activity, but she had a portfolio of results. Real systems she had built, real products she could demonstrate. And she got recruited by a major tech company, not because she shouted, but because her work spoke louder than her words ever could. She let her consistency be her confession. That's silent power. You see, real growth doesn't come from attention. It comes from alignment. Alignment with your purpose, your values, your God-given vision. That kind of growth doesn't demand approval, it demands discipline. And the discipline to work quietly is rare, especially in a generation obsessed with being seen. But that's why silent discipline is so powerful. It separates you. It gives you depth. when others are living on the surface. Success that's built in silence becomes unshakable. Why? Because it's not based on hype, it's based on habits. When the applause dies down, when the trends shift, when no one's watching, you're still there, still growing, still producing. So that's the kind of power that lasts, the kind that creates legacy. So don't be discouraged if no one notices your grind right now. Don't let the silence make you think you're being overlooked. You're not being overlooked, you're being developed. And development is never public, it's private, it's painful, and it's powerful. Let the others post. Let them talk. You stay focused. You stay faithful. Because one day, the very people who ignored your process will be in awe of your results. And when that day comes, you won't need to explain anything. You won't need to say a word. Your results will speak. Your fruit will testify. Your life will be evidence that silent power is real power. And that the loudest thing you ever did was stay quiet and do the work. So walk in discipline, build in silence, and let your success make all the noise. Self-discipline multiplies your value. That statement might seem simple on the surface, but its depth is life-changing. In any environment, whether it's business, relationships, or personal development, value is the determining factor. The more value you bring, the more opportunities you attract, the more influence you carry, and the more you're rewarded. Now, the secret many people miss is this. Value doesn't just come from talent or education. It comes from how consistently, reliably, and effectively you show up. And that comes from one thing: self-discipline. When you're disciplined, you're not just doing what's expected, you're doing what's necessary. You don't need to be reminded, pushed, or monitored. You become the person who can be trusted with responsibility, with leadership, with growth. And in any setting, whether it's a team, a business, or a family, that kind of person becomes indispensable. Why? Because people trust disciplined individuals. They know that when the pressure hits, when the deadlines come, when everyone else is flaking out, you will be the one still standing, still working, still producing. Discipline makes you valuable because it separates you from the crowd. Most people are reactive. They wait until problems arise and then scramble to fix them. Disciplined people are proactive. They anticipate, they prepare, they execute before it becomes urgent. That alone multiplies your value. It means you're not just solving problems, you're preventing them. You're not just getting things done, you're making things better. And better is what people pay for. Better is what people follow. Better is what people remember. Here's the key truth. When you operate with discipline, your work becomes excellent, not just average. And excellence always commands attention, even in silence. You don't need to chase recognition. Discipline attracts it for you. Excellence is magnetic. People are drawn to those who do more, do it well, and do it without being told. That's the power of self-discipline. It transforms you from someone who needs supervision into someone who leads. And leaders are valuable in every context. Let me give you an example. There was a young man working in an entry-level warehouse job. He wasn't a flashy position, didn't have a fancy title, and wasn't the most talented or charismatic person in the building, but he was disciplined. Every day he showed up 15 minutes early. He reviewed his responsibilities the night before. He made sure every box was packed, not just fast, but with accuracy and care. He volunteered to stay late when the shift was short. He didn't complain, didn't cut corners, and didn't wait to be asked. Month after month, others would come and go, slack off and make excuses. But he stayed consistent. After a year, management noticed. Not because he was loud, but because he was reliable. While others talked, he delivered. He didn't just get a raise, he got promoted. Not once, but twice. Within 3 years, he was managing the entire department. And here's the key. He didn't get there by being the smartest. He got there by being the most disciplined. His discipline made him trustworthy. His trustworthiness multiplied his value. And eventually, his value created influence that changed the course of his life. Now, here's what you need to understand. This isn't just about a job. This is a principle for every area of life. In business, the disciplined entrepreneur outlasts the lucky one. In fitness, the disciplined person gets results long after motivation runs out. In relationships, the disciplined partner builds trust, stability, and long-term connection. Discipline is the compound interest of personal development. It might seem slow in the beginning, but over time it builds an unstoppable momentum. And with momentum comes multiplied value. You want to become valuable? Be the one who doesn't need reminders. Be the one who shows up early, stays late, thinks ahead, delivers quality, and keeps promises, even the ones made in private. Be the one who can be counted on when things go wrong. Be the one who does the small things with excellence, because the person who is faithful in little will be trusted with much. The world rewards those who can solve problems, carry weight, and produce consistent results. All of those are fruits of discipline. So don't chase attention. Don't chase clout. Chase self-mastery. Chase consistency. Chase doing the right thing when no one is clapping. Because when you do that, your value doesn't just rise, it multiplies. And once your value multiplies, so do your opportunities, your income, your impact, and your legacy. Self-discipline might seem small. It might seem like something that just affects your daily routine. But the truth is, it affects your destiny. The disciplined person becomes the valuable person. And the valuable person becomes the person everyone wants on their team, in their company, in their circle. So if you want to stand out, if you want to rise up, and if you want to live at the highest level, develop discipline quietly, daily, faithfully. Because discipline doesn't just change what you do, it changes who you become. And who you become will determine how much you're worth, not just in money, but in purpose, influence, and legacy. Most people hear the word discipline and instantly think of something harsh. They think of restriction, suffering, limitation. They associate discipline with saying no to what feels good, what's easy, what's fun. But here's the truth that can transform your entire life. Discipline is not punishment, it's preparation. It's not about depriving you, it's about developing you. It's not about saying no to pleasure, it's about saying yes to purpose. When you deny yourself temporary pleasure, you're not losing, you're investing. You're building a future where you're not running after opportunity. Opportunity is running after you. Because the disciplined life sharpens your mind, strengthens your will, and elevates your standards. It positions you for moments of impact that people who live by comfort will never be ready for. Discipline isn't meant to break you, it's meant to build you. It's the weight room of the soul. Every time you choose structure over laziness, focus over distraction, commitment over comfort, you are preparing for a life that most people will never taste because they never trained for it. If a soldier doesn't train before the battle, they get crushed. If an athlete doesn't practice before the game, they don't perform. And if you don't discipline yourself before success shows up, success will overwhelm you, or worse, pass you by. You don't rise to the level of your talent, you rise to the level of your preparation. Talent opens the door, but discipline builds the strength to walk through it. And the more disciplined you are in the dark, the more effective you'll be in the spotlight. The beautiful irony is that what feels like restriction is actually the gateway to freedom. When you discipline your money, you gain financial freedom. When you discipline your health, you gain energy and longevity. When you discipline your thoughts, you gain clarity and peace. The things people call too hard are the very things that unlock the life they secretly want. Think about it. There's no such thing as a great musician who never practiced, a top athlete who never trained, a successful business person who never planned. They all paid a price in the quiet that positioned them for influence in the open. That's the role of discipline. It's not taking something from you, it's giving something to you. It's giving you readiness, it's giving you confidence, it's giving you the ability to walk into a moment and not be shaken because you trained for this. Let's look at an example. There was a young man who dreamed of becoming a professional speaker. Every night after work, while his friends relaxed and watched TV, he would go to his room and practice speeches. He didn't have an audience, he didn't have a stage, but he had discipline. He would record himself, critique himself, rewrite his words, work on his tone, and sharpen his delivery. He turned down parties. He passed on weekends out, and people laughed. They said, "You're doing too much. You're missing life." But he wasn't missing life, he was preparing for it. One day, unexpectedly, his manager asked if he could give a last-minute presentation because the scheduled speaker had canceled. Most people would have panicked, but he didn't need to prepare, he was prepared. He stood up, delivered the message, and blew everyone away. That one moment led to a string of opportunities. And years later, he became one of the most sought-after speakers in his field. Not because of luck, not because of talent alone, but because he disciplined himself when no one was watching. That's what discipline does. It gets you ready. When the spotlight hits, you don't fold, you don't fake, you flow. Because you built the muscle. You embraced the sacrifice. You chose the pain of preparation over the pain of regret. Understand this. Life will always involve some kind of pain, either the pain of discipline or the pain of disappointment. You get to choose. But one pain builds you, the other breaks you. One is short-term and strategic, the other is long-term and destructive. So don't see discipline as punishment, see it as the price for greatness, the entry fee to purpose, the refining fire that purifies your potential. And don't let the culture confuse you. We live in a world that celebrates instant gratification, but the rewards that matter most, impact, legacy, mastery, can only be accessed through delayed gratification. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and who you're called to be. It's the tool God gives you to stretch your character so it can carry the weight of your calling. So yes, it's hard to say no to what feels good now, but when you do, you're saying yes to something far greater later. You're saying yes to being ready when the door opens. Yes to being trusted with more. Yes to walking in excellence, not just existence. You weren't created for mediocrity. You were created for dominion. And dominion doesn't come by default. It comes by discipline. When you master your habits, your impulses, and your focus, you stop being a slave to circumstances and start becoming the architect of your future. Discipline is not punishment. It is the gift of preparation. It doesn't make your life smaller. It makes your future bigger. And when you embrace it, not as a burden, but as a blessing, you step into a life where you don't have to chase success. Success starts chasing you. Most people believe that freedom means doing whatever you want, whenever you want. That freedom is about breaking rules, ignoring structure, and chasing every whim. But that's not freedom. That's chaos. That's slavery. Slavery to emotions, to impulses, to distractions. Real freedom doesn't come from following your feelings. Real freedom comes from mastering them. And that mastery, it only comes through self-discipline. Discipline is not a cage, it's a key that unlocks your true potential. When you're disciplined, you don't live by impulse, you live by intention. You're no longer a prisoner of procrastination. You're no longer shackled by fear, laziness, or self-doubt. You move on purpose, with purpose, and toward purpose. Discipline frees you to do what you were born to do, not just what feels good in the moment. It aligns your daily actions with your deeper calling. That's freedom. Think about it. A person who lacks discipline might think they're free because no one's telling them what to do. But look closer. They're stuck in the same cycles, stuck chasing motivation that never lasts, stuck in bad habits that rob them of joy, health, focus, and purpose. They're not free. They're trapped by the very behavior they believe is freedom. True discipline breaks that cycle. doesn't limit your life, it liberates it. When you become disciplined, you take your power back. You become the kind of person who can say no to the temporary so you can say yes to the eternal. No to comfort so you can say yes to calling. No to excuses so you can say yes to excellence. And when you start living that way, you don't just exist, you dominate. Not in arrogance, but in alignment. You start walking like someone who was created to lead, to build, to transform, to impact. And that's exactly what you were created for. Here's an example. A young woman dreamed of starting her own business. She had ideas, passion, and talent, but she also had habits that held her back. Sleeping in, skipping tasks, scrolling for hours, waiting for the right mood to work. For years, she stayed stuck in frustration. She thought, maybe I'm not cut out for this. But the truth was, she wasn't free, not from a lack of skill, but from a lack of discipline. Then one day, she made a decision. No more waiting for motivation. No more living by feelings. She created a routine. She set boundaries. She woke up early, planned her day, and worked on her business consistently, even when she didn't feel like it. Weeks turned into months, and soon what once felt hard became habit. Her business started growing. Her confidence increased. Doors opened. Why? Because discipline freed her, not just to work, but to become the woman she was always meant to be. That's what self-discipline does. It doesn't make your life harder. It makes your future lighter. It doesn't box you in. It sets you apart. You don't rise by chasing every pleasure. You rise by choosing purpose over preference. You rise when your spirit leads your habits, not your habits leading your spirit. So no, discipline isn't about control in the way the world sees it. It's not about living small or denying joy. It's about choosing the greater joy, the joy of fulfillment, of growth, of becoming. You were never created for average. You were born for impact. But to walk in that, you need the strength to say no to what limits you and yes to what launches you. That's the power of discipline. That's the meaning of real freedom. Consistency, commitment, and quiet focus are the hidden forces behind lasting success. Too often, people believe that to achieve greatness, they need to shout from the rooftops, seek constant validation, or chase after recognition and clout. But real power works differently. Real power is built in silence, in the daily choice to show up, do the work, and stay true to your purpose without the need for applause. When you consistently obey your own calling, regardless of external attention or praise, you position yourself far beyond where mere talent or hustle can take you. Talent alone can open some doors, but without discipline, talent fades or becomes unreliable. Hustle may force open opportunities temporarily, but without consistency and commitment, those opportunities don't last. Self-discipline is the steady engine that drives you forward even when motivation wanes, when distractions scream louder, or when results take longer than expected. It's the unseen effort that creates breakthroughs when nobody is watching. This kind of commitment to your purpose, quiet, persistent, unwavering, is what builds strength that can endure pressure, setbacks, and challenges. When you decide to be consistent, you create momentum. Small, daily actions compound over time into extraordinary results. Consistency builds trust, not only with others, but within yourself. You become the person who can be counted on, the person who follows through. That reliability becomes your foundation. It means not quitting when things get tough, not making excuses, and not allowing temporary discomfort to derail your progress. The quieter you remain while living out your discipline, the louder your results will eventually speak. To illustrate this, consider the story of a man who started running every morning before sunrise. At first, it was tough. The bed was warm, the street was cold, and no one was around to notice or cheer him on. He didn't post on social media or seek praise. He simply committed to showing up day after day. Weeks passed, then months. His endurance improved, his health transformed, and his mindset sharpened. Eventually, he entered a marathon and finished near the top of his age group. No one remembered the first cold mornings or the early struggles. Only the quiet, relentless commitment that made his achievement possible. This example highlights the power of silent consistency. The man's results didn't come from talent alone or a one-time burst of energy. They came from the daily obedience to his own purpose, regardless of recognition or applause. That obedience is what transforms dreams into reality. It's the difference between fleeting effort and lasting success. In life, you will face moments when it feels easier to seek validation or distraction instead of focusing on your goals. It's in these moments that self-discipline matters most. Being consistent, being committed, and being quiet means trusting the process and believing that your efforts will bear fruit, even if the world doesn't immediately see it. It means choosing obedience to your calling over the temptation of instant gratification. When you embrace this mindset, you'll notice a shift. Doors will open that talent alone couldn't unlock. You'll develop a resilience that hustle alone can't build. Your strength won't break under pressure because it is forged through daily dedication and silent perseverance. Ultimately, your results will speak so loudly that no one can ignore them without you ever having to shout. This is the power of silent discipline. Be consistent, be committed, be quiet, and let your results be the undeniable proof of your purpose lived out fully. So here's the truth. If you want to rise, stop talking. If you want to grow, stop waiting. And if you want to win, stop negotiating with weakness. Train your habits, guard your time, and obey your calling daily, faithfully, silently, because self-discipline is silent power. And that's the kind of power that changes everything.